Step-parent versus stepchildren. Who wins?
So these step-parents and step-children relationships are highly complex and complicated in our world of trust and estate litigation, especially. But let's assume for a moment that dad dies, you're a child, and stepmom is taking all of the assets for herself, and you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, that was my dad's property. Shouldn't I receive something? So what do you say to people who have that scenario?
It depends. And it's going to depend on the facts of the case. If there's no estate plan at all, there's going to be one road you're going to go down. If there's a trust that gives everything to the surviving spouse who's not your mother, you're probably out of luck, absent some extreme facts of undue influence and lack of capacity. And so we need to know that. Is there a will? And what was the circumstances of the creation of the will? There's also undue influence and lack of capacity there. There is a case that was decided in California, I believe in 2014, Lentz versus Lentz. And it was the first case that comes along, in my mind, that really helps address this particular problem. And that is, what if surviving spouse, stepmom, did in fact take advantage of dad on his deathbed? And we see this from time to time where dad will change his entire estate plan that he's giving down to his children, and he's giving the stepmom an equal share of it, but she wants it all. And so on his deathbed, he signs an amendment giving everything to the wife. Lentz versus Lentz comes to the rescue and says, look, spouses owe fiduciary obligations to one another, and you can't take advantage of your spouse. Mm-hmm. And that's good. It's a good case. It's a good finding, because in these times where you do see where the wife, stepmom, has done something inappropriate, you can now point to Lentz versus Lentz and the progeny that comes from that, and you can try to rectify the problem. I will tell you, before Lentz, it was very difficult to go against a stepmom in that case. The courts tend to favor spouses, surviving spouses, over the children. And so Lentz has given us a little bit of room. Let me contrast that with if stepmom was given an amendment 10 years ago when dad was in good health and happy and felt wonderful, Lentz probably is not going to be helpful there.
So you're really talking about whether or not you can prove that a spouse unduly influenced the other spouse, which is always a tricky proposition because people just assume that spouses influence each other all the time. And because spouses are kind of favored by the court over kids, you're kind of fighting that uphill battle, which is what Lentz is helping with.
That's right.
The other question I have about step-parents is a lot of times children believe that they have a right to their parents' estate or part of the estate just by virtue of the fact that they're a child of dad. And yet that may or may not be the case.
And that's unfortunately a frustrating conversation we'll have with prospective clients at times, is that they do have an understanding that this is my father. He just met this person 10 years ago. They've been married for 10 years. Why is my stepmom, she's not even my stepmom, she's my dad's second wife, why is she getting all of the assets when I'm blood related to my father? And it's because your father created a trust that gave everything to her. Now, if your father didn't create a trust that gave everything to her, that's a different analysis, but that's primarily what happens in those cases.
And so it really all comes back to proper planning. So if you have a parent who truly does want to benefit the kids, they had better do some good planning before it's too late.
That's true. And I'll just end this on, think how complex and complicated these conversations are with between spouses that have different sets of kids. The one spouse, nobody knows who's going to die first, but both want to be able to still live in the family home for the rest of their life. But think about this conversation you're having. Hey, I'm going to give you the right to live here for the rest of your life, but when you die, then everything goes to my kids. It's a strange conversation. It's not a comfortable conversation.
It is very uncomfortable.
It's almost easier to say you get everything and I'll trust you to give it to my kids, which the wife says, oh, absolutely, I'll give it to the kids, but it doesn't always work out that way.
That's correct. Albertson & Davidson is here to help you fight for your inheritance. Check out aldavlaw.com for our complete library of helpful legal videos and articles from your favorite California trust and will litigation law firm, Albertson & Davidson, LLP.